All right. Hey, everybody. Dan Fitzpatrick here at stockmarketmentor.com. And I want to go over Rigetti. Wouldn't it be nice if this was actually the current chart? But it's not. It's from a month ago, a couple months ago, actually, back in August when this thing bottomed. So just a spoiler alert. If you haven't taken profits on Rigetti by now, you really need to. I'm not saying you should take it all. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. It's your trade, your money. Um, if you want to just take my specific advice, then you have to give me half. And I don't think you're going to do that. So make your own decisions. I'm just trying to help you out here. So anyway, the stock been trading right along the 50-day moving average, right? So this is where it was back here. I'd been watching this stock, pardon me for clearing my throat, but you can see how it had been really kind of trading in a fairly tight range. The base here went on for almost 5 months. And if you want to just count this as one big long one, it just kind of kept going. Like this was one big massive base that went over a year. Now, if you look from bottom to top, I'd say 167% move from bottom to top qualifies as more of a base, more than a base, but you get the idea. So anyway, what I did, I'd been watching this stock. You can see all this junk here. This is when we bought this stock on the 20th. And I suggested that the stop go right down. We wanted to make a really tight trade because I was basically buying a falling knife and assuming, hoping, whatever, that the 50-day moving average would be the butcher block. And so the stock would just stay there. So that turned out to be right. But the thing that was really cool was we got a really low risk trade on this, just like 5%, which on a volatile stock like this, 5% is pretty good. So anyway, that trade worked, and the stock's just been going and going and going, raising the stops all along the way, right? So at one point we were making, and this is actually, this is old news. So we're up much more than this, where we were making here, this was as of like several days ago, we were up $55 for every dollar that we risked. So this has been a monster trade if you're just looking at risk. So we had like a 250% return up here. And what I'd been coaching our peeps to do is you want to be taking some profits along the way, but do whatever you want to do, but you can kind of hang on to some as well. And so I'm just reiterating that, by the way, just so you know, I just got done doing the strategy session for tonight, and I went into a lot of detail on this. So if you're a member, you definitely need to watch. If you're interested in this stuff at all, you don't have to, but you are paying for it. You definitely need to watch tonight's strategy session, because you're going to learn about selling into strength, but holding some back, why you should do that, how you should do that, what the benefits are, what the costs are, stuff like that. I'm going into a lot of detail for you. I am also talking about covered calls within the money calls, not out of the money calls, which is how most people do it. Oh, I'll buy the stock at 60, I'll sell the 65 call. I'm going the other way and showing you how to protect a position that's extended. So definitely want to check that out. But back on track here. So my suggested stop here was 47.57. It hit that stop today. So I'm not going to say that we're out of this trade. Well, we're out of this trade idea. Yeah, stop got hit. That's what you have to do. But I'm leaving it on the list because probably a lot of you still have some of this stock, and I think that's fine. But you have to understand that 3 days here, nice moves for 2 days, and then the third day, still pretty good. But then followed by this on a higher than average volume day, barely, but it was higher than average. And a really bad close right below the 8-day moving average. This really kind of smells like something a little different than just these last little guys here. So just be aware of that. That's all I wanted to tell you is if you've been following this trade all the way up, make sure you don't follow the stock all the way down. It's been a monster trade. You don't get that many of them. I wish, but you don't get that many of them. So respect the ones that you do and say thank you very much. And don't be greedy. Don't expect more than the stock will give you. Stock doesn't know who you are. And if it did, it wouldn't like you because you're asking for something that the stock doesn't owe you. So take the money and run. Be happy. And I'll see you next time. All right. All right. You guys have a good one.